thought I'd kick things off today by jumping straight into a demo so you can hear what it sounds like in a mix with a few beats and stuff like that. And there's good reason for that. That's because I've got the AJ Synth Radiophonic behind me. I've had to rearrange the room. So I've been trying to work out how to video this without just showing the back of my head. Maybe not be such a bad thing, much more attractive to the front perhaps. And at least my hair hasn't gone grey on the back yet. But anyway, so this will be a bit of a talking hands video. So if you don't like talking hands videos, I do apologise, but it's just got a bit too complicated. There are beats, like I say, on this demo. I will play it raw at the end so you can actually hear what the synth's doing, but it just sounded so nice as I started adding little bits to it that I thought I'd leave them in for the intro. So sit back and enjoy. This goes on for about 3 or 4 minutes, but it's very, very nice. Now you've heard it then, what exactly is it? Well, it's the world's first analog modal synth, or analog modal polysynth at least. And what's a modal synth, I hear you cry? Well, it's something that uses the basics of a Karplus-Strong oscillator to produce a tone. And what's a Karplus-Strong oscillator, I hear you cry? Well, Kevin Karplus and Alexander Strong first proposed it in a research paper back in 1982. This is it, and it looks very complicated, but it's a cheap way to digitally fake a plucked string using a short noise burst called the exciter run through a delay line called the resonator. And you can think of the exciter as something like the bow, a plectrum, or a hammer that strikes the resonator, which is like a string or the body of an instrument. And there are loads of Karplus-Strong derivatives around at the minute. There was Plaits, there was rings, there was Braids and other mutable instruments and modules that brought it to the fore, I think. So you've got it in things like the Arturia MiniFreak now, and the Minilogue XD has got a Plaits oscillator you can get for the digital oscillator in that. So it's all over the place. So perhaps there's a lot less people saying what on earth is a Karplus-Strong these days than there would have been 10 years ago. Now you've heard it and seen it in action, let's take a quick look at what we've got on the front panel. Taking the Karplus-Strong concept, we've got the exciter on the left and the resonator on the right, but instead of modeling these things algorithmically, as I said earlier, these are all analog circuits. In the center, we've got a fully fledged modulation section with 6 sources, envelope, quad LFOs, that's 4 LFOs, mod wheel velocity, aftertouch, and key follow. Every parameter that's got one of these circles linked to it is modulatable, so we've got 32 destinations in total. We've got a D ADSR envelope over here, so ADSR with an onset delay. And we've got the 6 voices, and these can be split into 6 voice groups. We're looking at voice group 1 at the minute. So whatever we dial in now is affecting voice group 1. We can have just a single voice group and play it as a standard polysynth, or we can split it into up to 6. So this can be 6 separate monosynths. And that's exactly what I've done with this patch here. I've split it into 6 different voice groups. So voice group 1, 2, 3. And you can see there's different things happening with the modulation on the different voice groups. Come back into the preset. We can see which one's playing. So I've tuned them all differently. And if you listen to them, they're all slightly different. Nice and fuzzy, a little bit dirty, a bit cleaner. It's got that nice little, well, an additional bit of the resonator in there, you can hear that. Bit of modulation there on the pan, a bit lower with a bit more VCF in there, higher frequency on the VCF. Dirty and sort of almost like a sonar, that one. And that's got a really low rate on the noise sample and hold circuit. It gives it that really crackly feel. So all together, if I play different notes even. Fabulous that, isn't it? In fact, let's stick it on an arpeggiator. And of course, each of these has got its own stereo output on the back. It uses TRS outputs for each of them. So you use like an insert cable or an insert loom. It's got stereo on one end and 2 monos on the other. And we've got an external input as well. So you can use whatever you like as an exciter. It doesn't have to be the waveforms that we've got in here. So it is an effects unit as well. That's enough of that. Then going back to that patch with the different tunings on each of the voices, I'm putting it in unison so they're all playing at the same time. It'd be nice if you could change things for them all on all the different voice groups at the same time. Maybe you can. I've not found a way of doing it yet. I've not looked. Just something that's springing to mind as I'm demoing it. Well, yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? Let's take a closer look at what each of the sections do. And we'll start off over here with the exciter. And on this, we have analog wave shapes. This is an analog oscillator over here. And we've got wave shapes, we've got noise, and we've got a mix between the wave shapes and the noise. And we've got the sample and hold rate of the noise. So let's just reset it to the initial patch. So that's a sine, triangle, sawtooth, and square, and these are really nice sounding. Go down an octave, go down another octave. So that's a powerful sounding analog synth, isn't it? This is an analog filter. So you have scope to do standard style tones. If we add some noise to the mix, and then reduce the sample and hold rate, it goes all the way down to almost a crackle, like a vinyl crackle. That's what you heard on oscillator 6 on or voice 6 on that previous sound. So you get all sorts of lovely fuzziness. And I'll show the modulation section in a minute, but just to show you this, we can get PWM style things from it if we just put it back onto the square. And then we modulate this. And you modulate something by picking the LFO, holding the LFO, and then just twisting this knob. So this is negative modulation. Just turn it, speed up. So the amount that you actually move this knob is the amount of modulation. Although there are other ways of doing it. If I put that on full, for example, I could reduce that using this. This is the overall amount of modulation for the 4 LFOs, or individually for just LFO 1. You can see that's dimming there and increasing in value. How many fingers do we need? But yeah, I'll show that in a second, but really, a nice big fat PWM tone. And what else do we have over here? We've got the DADSR envelope. So we've got the onset delay and then ADSR. And we've got 3 different speeds for that. If I take that modulation off, I'll just hold that. It takes the modulation off. Let's put it back onto the sine, actually. We'll add some release. So this is maximum release. Doesn't sound like much, and that's because we're on the snappiest mode. And then the longest mode. And we've got a really, really super snappy mode here, because if we turn the decay down, turn the sustain down, we can do those little pulses that you'd want for your Karplus-Strong. Obviously, that's the original type of Karplus-Strong algorithm. We've got a lot more going on in this. But just to show you very quickly, let's turn up the feedback. Let's turn up the dry wet. There's your Karplus-Strong. Typical tone. It's really nice, isn't it? But let's go back to the left-hand side. So we've got that click. We've also got on this a looping. It's looping. Let's get it to loop. Oh, I've got to hold it. There you go. Take the loop off for a second. Let's put it back onto a sine, to a longer one. Let's add some onset delay. So this is another way of having like almost, well, movement, or like an arpeggiator. If I load in this tone here, I think it was 664. Let's go up a couple of octaves. 5 oscillators or 5 voices, each playing with a different onset delay. Back to the initial patch. Then we've got frequency. I won't do that again. Let's save your ears. But if you look at this, we can see where the initial tone is set, or the knob set. So this is set at 0. And that's where you're offsetting it. I'll do it on the 5 frequency so it doesn't hurt your ears. And then when both of them are lit, that's where it was originally. And that's the same for all the knobs. So sustain, for example, it was set there. When we set up the patch, it was set at full. What else can we look at there? Or level. So yeah, there's the exciter section. Now we move over to the BBD resonator. We have heard it briefly, but there's some nice things happening in this. Let's add some release again. Let's bring it in. Let's have it just the wet. So now we're listening to the BBD resonator on its own. Let's turn the feedback up. Put this onto sawtooth so we can hear the input. That's the input filter. So that's the signal going into the resonator. And then we've got a feedback filter as well. So this is the filter on the signal that's being fed back in. And then we can invert that and it gives us a whole load of different harmonics. Sounds more hollow. Depends what you've got going into it as well. Bring in some of the drive signal. We can tune the resonator as well. Note offset. Let's add some noise into that. I think some attack maybe. Some spaceship rumbles. Then we can put this into self-oscillation, taking the feedback over 12. So this is when it gets really mental. You hear the different voices, different pitches. All at the same pitch now. Okay, let's take a look at the modulation section, and this is really super powerful. It's a really important part of the synth, and what's really clever about it is that we don't have a modulation matrix in a menu. We've got it all with visual feedback from these LEDs. So we've got the 6 modulation sources: envelope, quad LFO, there's 4 different LFOs in there, mod wheel, velocity, aftertouch, and key follow. Anything that's lit up in red is positive modulation, and anything in blue is negative modulation. And the way you set up the modulations, as we saw earlier, is you just twist the knob. So that's negative, it's getting brighter, which means it's more modulation. Positive modulation, getting brighter, and then no modulation. So we've got negative modulation on the panning, and we've got positive modulation on the filter. So the higher up we go, the brighter it is. The lower down on the keyboard, the less high frequencies come through. And we've got a subtle variation on the panning, depending on where we are on the keyboard. So we can see that straight away. If we go to the LFO, quad LFO, okay. LFO3 is modulating the wave versus noise mix, and that's using a sawtooth. And that's that clicky click you can hear. LFO4 isn't modulating anything. LFO1 has got a little bit of modulation on the fine tune here. You can just see. I turn that up a bit. We can hear it doing it even more. Speed it up so it's more obvious. So let's just knock that back down again to give some tiny subtle variations. So LFO2 modulating the filter. So if we actually turn it all down, that's zero modulation. We turn it up with this. I did show a bit of this earlier. We can turn it off by clicking that. So you can turn it up. Then add it. But I'll start off with an initial patch. I'm going to go from there just to show you really how we set it all up and to show you some more details with what we can do with the LFO. So we'll modulate the wave shape. We did this earlier, but let's make it positive modulation this time. So we'll modulate that with LFO1. So let's have a little bit of variation on there. Let's add a little bit of release. Now let's modulate the rate of LFO1 with the envelope. So we'll turn that up. We're on LFO1 there. So let's do something with the envelope. So a little bit of decay, bring the sustain down. There we go. Now we can modulate LFOs with LFOs. So if we hold quad LFO and then we move to the source, so LFO1 is now going to be modulated by LFO2. And we just set this up like we normally would. So here's the LFO parameters. Let's modulate the rate of LFO1 again. So turn that up. Okay, so if we come to LFO2 now, we'll put that onto a square. So we should hear this pretty obviously. So now we're modulating LFO1 with the envelope and LFO2. There's a few other things we can do with these LFOs. We can make it unipolar or bipolar. If we hold the wave, this is now unipolar. Put it back onto bipolar. So unipolar, it's only going faster. And you can see that's gone white, and when we change the wave, it's still unipolar. And now we've also got a single shot mode. So if we hold this, we're on single shot, so it'll only do one cycle of the square wave. And that's resetting when we do it that way. We'll just reset it. So we've got keyboard reset and single wave. When you do the single wave, it keyboard resets anyway, is what I was trying to describe there. And then if we hold select, this will dim. Let's put that back on bipolar. So just to show that it does on bipolar as well. And now the rate of LFO2 is being controlled by a MIDI input. So this rate now, I think there's 20 different settings it can be. But I've not got a MIDI clock coming in at the minute. Let's come back to an initial patch then, and I'll show you what the random rate, the random wave mix and the smoothing does. Effectively, it's a sample and hold circuit. So we'll modulate the coarse frequency with LFO1. We'll put LFO1 mix onto just the random wave, turn the random rate up a bit, and then we'll go to quad LFO and we'll add some modulation to that. Let's bring that back down again. There we go, random rate. Now I've got the random and the wave mix. So let's come up here a bit. So now you can hear we've got randomness and we've got the sine. randomness and a square. More obvious like that, isn't it? So you can add randomness to your waves, what I'm trying to show here. But if we go just a plain old random, we can smooth that. Let's knock the actual amount of modulation down a bit. Just sounds like it's broken. So you can do sort of tape style things. Bit of lo-fi madness. Let's put a bit of noise into this as well, shall we? Some release. Just trying to do something a bit mad sounding, so let's add some feedback in there. Let's add some mix to that. Nice bit of madness straight away, innit? Something I'm not sure I've shown yet, I've been playing with this for hours, is if we've got the feedback up full, that will just carry on playing. And the different voices are tuned to different notes. But we can use this envelope over here to modulate that. So if we go to the envelope, we'll modulate this with the envelope. So now we're using this envelope to modulate the amount of dry wet, which means we'll cut off the feedback. But you can get really nice, weird tones using all this. I feel like I'm a bit all over the place, and that's really because when you start playing with it, things just appear out of nowhere. So we'll see if we can do a rumble. That's great, isn't it? Come back into that, let's put a bit more on there. And just before I make something more musical with this, each of these parameters here are obviously modulatable, so you can modulate the smoothing, you can modulate the amplitude of the LFO, the mix, and the reset, etc. That's why we've got those 6 buttons there. But just to wrap up on the modulation, it is really flexible with these LFOs in particular. The fact that they can modulate each other, that we've got the random, different random rate to the wave rate. You can put randomness on top of the wave. It just all adds to this sort of feeling of experimentation. If this was a modular system, there'd be all sorts of cables all over the place. You probably wouldn't be able to actually see the synth at this point, but I can't overstate how cleverly it's been done and implemented. Anyway, let's do something a little more musical with it. Here's a really nice patch I've made that's got loads of subtle modulation. It's got no modulation at the minute, just nice and soft, like a dusty old electric piano or something. Really nice tone, but I'm gonna add a lot of modulation. I've already added it in here, it makes it easier for me to demo. So if it's flashing, it means it's sort of muted. So there's modulation of the filter by the LFO, and the LFO is running really slowly at the minute. But if I bring the envelope to modulate the filter, to modulate that LFO. And now if I modulate it faster up the keyboard and slower down the keyboard, so that's using key follow to change the rate as well, we've got this really nice effect. So we play high up, higher. So we get lots of subtle modulation across the keyboard. And then maybe just a little bit brighter on key follow again, brighter up the keyboard than lower. Then pan spread as well. Just a little bit of pan spread, so the higher notes are to the right and the lower notes are to the left, but not completely spread, keeping it nice and subtle. I did also have the level. When it's blue, it means it's negative modulation. I did have the level, so it was quieter down at the bottom than at the top, but I didn't need it in the end. That's why I've left that one flashing. If we come to LFO4, I'm using that to modulate the panning as well, and this is using the random on a smooth mode. Again, I've done it really subtly. Bring it in. Just to spread things out a bit. But it gives a really nice subtle bit of modulation. Beautiful, that, isn't it? Absolutely gorgeous. Love that. So envelope modulating LFO1, the LFO modulating the cutoff, and the key follow modulating envelope 1 rate, and the cutoff depending on where it is on the keyboard, obviously the panning depending on where it is on the keyboard, and then on 4 as well. In fact, got a little bit of extra subtle additional modulation there that I've not put in yet. So that's key following modulating LFO4. And LFO4 has given me a little bit of modulation on a little bit of random modulation on the VCF, and a little bit of random modulation on the panning as well. Now we can adjust the level, the overall level of that modulation. So I'm turning it down for all the LFOs here. So we should get no modulation now in it. Just nice and soft, like a dusty old electric piano or something. Take the key follow off as well. Yes, sort of need that key follow on. So bring the quad LFO back in. Or we can take it out just by hitting it. So some performance tools over here as well. So if we turn this down and then play something. So there you have it, the Echon6 from Morphor Radical Instruments, and it is a radical instrument, isn't it? I can't think of another, and that's because there isn't another analog modal synth that's got the exciter and the resonator. Obviously, there are a lot of digital things that do that, including Synth Steampipe, and I might put them together in the future if there's enough interest in that, but I do know what my conclusion is going to be, and that is that the Steampipe is a lot more tricky to get used to. Actually, the controls are just a bit more esoteric. There's that, is it that push control, and trying to figure out what that does. It was a bit strange the way the feedback works on that. It took a lot longer to understand than the Echon6 did. The Echon6 felt quite natural actually once I started using it. The Steampipe can go a lot more experimental, I think, or can do that quicker. And that's maybe because of the distortion and that massive reverb that it's got on there. But Echon6 is just a beautiful, beautiful instrument. It's really well built as well. I've popped the top off a couple of the knobs. They've got steel shafts that bolted to the chassis. There really is no wobble in these whatsoever, and it doesn't take long to get used to that user interface. The way the modulation is set up is really super simple. And that patch that I showed you where I was adding that modulation, that is really quite simple to do. In a lot of other things, you know, you're scrolling through menus for the modulation matrix. It's just so simple to do on this. It's quite hard to explain how clever that is. You know, it takes things away from the standard subtractive synths like, you know, your Jupiters, your Junos, your Prophets, your Obams, all that sort of stuff. This is completely different. The market is flooded with subtractive synths at the minute. So this is a massively welcome detour from all that, and I have spent a lot longer making this video than I intended. I think it's been a couple of weeks since my last video, and that's because I've been enjoying myself experimenting with it, just tweaking it, playing it, and doing things that I wouldn't normally do, and that's what's so appealing about it, I think. You know, anything that takes you away from the norm, anything that sparks off new creativity, gets different neurons firing, is a good thing in my opinion. So if that is what you're interested in, if you like experimental sounding stuff and you've got plenty of subtractive synths already, perhaps this is 100% worth a look. It does get a massive thumbs up from me. I really do like it. Well, I hope that was of some use to somebody. If it was, please do subscribe, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. I've got patches, I've got samples, there's tutorials and other little goodies on there. And do take a look at my starskycard.com website. Again, there's patches, there's samples, there's free stuff and there's cheap stuff. And like I always say, it is nice if you pick up some of the cheaper bits because it really all does help to support the channel. Now don't go anywhere, that intro demo is coming up next in the raw without any external processing whatsoever, so you can hear exactly what was going on. So thanks for staying to the almost very end, and I will see you next time.